Thank you so much for coming to this professional development. I know sometimes we can feel that professional development kind of takes away from our time in the classroom, but this professional development was chosen for a specific reason, and it's to help you guys better support your ELL students inside of your classroom with their academic language. We're going to focus on some of the SDAIE strategies that have been proven to be very, very useful, and we're going to look at some of the research behind it, and we're going to look at why it should be applied in our classrooms and how we can best help support everyone. So here's an outline for today's session so we know exactly what we're going to be doing. We're going to start with an icebreaker, go over the objectives, look at the data and the justification for why we're doing this professional development. We're going to look at SDAIE as their strategies, and then you're going to start planning how you're going to use the SDAIE strategies in your classroom. Then we're going to go over some of the accountability processes we're going to go through, and then we'll get out of here. All right, sound good? All right, let's start with an icebreaker. So your icebreaker is going to be think, pair, share. For 1 minute, I want you guys to think about your answers to the questions that are listed up on the board. Then we're going to spend a couple minutes talking to a partner to get their ideas. And then we're going to do a whole group share out. However, you're going to share what your partner said. You're not going to share what you thought about. While you guys are sharing, I'll create a list of commonly shared ideas that we see. Okay, any questions? All right, go ahead and get started. And those are some really great ideas. Thank you so much for taking the time to think reflectively and share with each other what you experience in your own classroom. We're going to move on to the objectives. Our objectives are really, really straightforward. Our goal with this professional development is to create an opportunity for you guys to select and research a SDAIE strategy that you feel is going to fit best into your classroom. You're going to try it out in your classroom. You're going to collect data as you go, and then you're going to come back to your teams, share the data, make changes if you need to, or plan for using it in the long term. And then the last objective I want us to be able to do is I want you guys to come back to this group as a whole and share that strategy that you used and the successes and the struggles that you experience. And that can help other teachers use that same strategy in their classroom and overcome the obstacles that you overcame. So just to remind you that these objectives are all interconnected with each other, they're all purposefully built with each other, and they're going to help us become better in our classroom and supporting EL students. So why are we doing this professional development? There's some reasons why we're doing this professional development. The first reason we're doing this is because of the data that was collected from the LPAC test. The LPAC test revealed some things to us about our 8th graders this year, our 7th graders from last year, and what our incoming 7th graders are doing on the LPAC test. And it directly will address the LPAC and how to help support students in that, and it'll also help address academic weaknesses that we identified within our students. So here's those LPAC scores. This is the listening and speaking. These were important to look at. These aren't really what we're focusing on, but they're important to look at to show that the students are doing fairly well with the listening and the speaking. However, when it comes to the reading and the writing, they really, really struggle. A lot of our students in their reading performance, the beginning is at 67%. 2/3 of our students are not doing well on the reading portion of the LPAC test. And then in the writing performance, 4% were at beginning and 83% were at somewhat or moderately developed. And these are things that we can improve upon if we can improve upon on their reading. They go hand in hand together. So if we work on both at the same time, we're going to strengthen both together because they are interconnected. So this is the reason why, this is the data evidence for why we're doing it. The other data collection that we did was an interest survey that you guys took. So on top of the LPAC scores, we also gave you guys an interest survey to say, what are you doing in your class to help support EL students? What do you feel you need support in to better support your EL students? And what came up the most frequently was the SDAIE strategies. They were ranked a 4 out of 5 on an interest level, meaning that we were able to see that you guys are interested in learning more SDAIE strategies to better help your students. So this is the reason why we're doing this professional development. Before we move on, I really want you guys to just take a moment and talk to each other. What are the things that you are hoping you're able to get out of this professional development that you can take back to your classroom? Go ahead and have that conversation. Guys, those are some really great conversations. I was going around and I heard some of you mention the fact that you're hoping you're better able to help them build their academic language, because you heard on the new LPACS test that they're going to be tested not just on their ability to speak English, but their ability to use the actual terminology in the academic language. That's awesome. I love the fact that you guys are aware of that, and I love the fact you guys are aiming to help support the students in that area. So we're going to go into what is actually SDAIE strategies. What is SDAIE? SDAIE is a system that's created to help find ways to support students in various classroom practices. It's constantly growing. It's not just a platform that's set up and you do it once and it's done and it's over and it will never change. SDAIE strategies are constantly changing depending on what the classroom practices are and what the current classroom culture is like. So it's not something that's stagnant, it's something that's constantly growing. So going back and reviewing your SDAIE strategies is always really, really useful because it's something that's constantly changing. There are some very straightforward goals with SDAIE strategies. The first and foremost is looking at your content and your curriculum through the lens of an EL student. What is it that EL students are struggling with, and how can we support them with the use of the SDAIE strategies? So it's really focused on the perspective of the EL students. The other thing that it really focuses on is pulling in the students' background knowledge and applying it to what they're learning. So knowing that students are not coming in as blank slates, they have background information, they have personal cultures, and pulling that out and using that as a starting place for building new information. The other focus of SDAIE strategies is just not verbal representation, but visual representation by highlighting things on a board or using graphic organizers to help them construct their thoughts and their writing, or using other kinetic experiences like creating paragraphs out of sentence strips, or getting a hands-on learning experience with maybe a science lab. SDAIE also makes the teacher be aware of culturally specific figures of speech that they may use, like jargon or slang, and how that might not translate for EL students, and being conscious of that and being straightforward in the language that you're using and being very clear with the language that you're using. SDAIE also focuses on reinforcing the academic language that you guys were talking about earlier. And then also the last thing of SDAIE, and it's something that every teacher already does, but it's routinely assessing and intervening where necessary and making changes where necessary to support students. That's what SDAIE is. We're going to quickly watch a couple of just one video that goes over what SDAIE is. While you're watching it, try and pay attention to something that you haven't known before. Try and find some new information.
So go ahead and take a moment, talk with the people you're sitting around. What's something that you learned through this video or maybe from the previous slide? Or if you're already familiar with SDAIE, what's something you know about SDAIE that you can share with those who are sitting around you? Go ahead and have that conversation.